Hi guys, it's Kelly Latavola here, and I am actually here with my first video for Waffle Flower Crafts. So today we're going to be using the horizontal stripes die and then the In Bloom stamps and dies. I'm actually doing two cards because I have no self-control and I love pretty stamps. So the first one is going to be with a Distress Oxide background, a rainbow background, because I love rainbows. If you don't know me, and this is the first time that you're seeing one of my videos, rainbows pretty much a staple in my crafting. I love them so much. So the way that I like to do any sort of gradient as far as like from one color to another, I start off the paper, circular motion onto the paper. I'm also working on my watercolor media mat, which is fabulous. I've been loving this thing for months now. But then I move to the next color, and when I move to the next color, I start on either side. Every time I'm starting off the paper. Distress Oxides blend easier than Distress Inks because they are both pigment and dye inks. They have both properties. I'm going to speed it up here just so you don't have to watch me do every color, because then we would all be bored to tears, right? So I'm just going to keep doing that. But every time I put it down, so I move to the next color, then I go back over it and blend with my last color. And then I do all of this. I know you're probably going to think I'm a crazy person, but I do all of it twice. So I'm going to go from red to orange to yellow, green, blue, purple. But honestly, I kind of wish that I would have just left it blue at the end. I really love Wilted Violet, but I felt like I lost a little bit of the blue at the bottom. And blue's my boyfriend. He's my favorite. So I'm a little sad that there wasn't more blue. But nonetheless, then I'm going to go in reverse. So I'm going to go from purple, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, so that all of it is completely saturated and I have really good coverage. Anytime you're doing Distress Ink or Oxide blending, I would recommend doing that because it really saturates the colors and gives you a great blend. Because I just really like the look of it, I am spattering on, I'm using a number 2 round brush, spattering on some just clean water in the background. I'm working on Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock, so this is not watercolor paper. So I'm not trying to put down a ton of moisture, but just enough to kind of break up that color to further add interest to the background and add shimmer, because I also believe you cannot have enough shimmer. I'm using Perfect Pearls and the color Perfect Pearls. These bind with water, so I mix it with a little bit of water and then I'm just going to spatter that on. You'll see that it did mix in with the candied apple a little bit, but you won't be able to see that when it dries. It's not going to dry that color. It will still be just that really pretty pearlescent sheen. I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I'm going to move on to the Copa coloring. So I did stamp 2 of these. This is the main image from the In Bloom set. It looks kind of like a peony to me. Or I'm sorry, that's not true. That is a lie. A poppy. That's what I thought it looked like, a poppy. I'm not good with plants. If you have followed my channel, you know I say I have a black thumb. Somebody once sent me an email and said, you know, you could change that. And they are absolutely correct. I could change that, but I don't want to because I just have no desire. That's just me. I love flowers. I appreciate them. I appreciate other people cultivating them. Thank you for doing that. But anyway, I stamped 2 of them because like I told you, I love all of the things. And I had 2 kind of ideas for how I wanted to do this particular card, and so I just decided to embrace it and do 2 of them. So for this one, I'm going to be coloring the little girl. She may look familiar because she's actually the same girl, which is drawn in the same style as this one, from Peony Dreams. And I did a no-line watercoloring video with that one back in May. So if you haven't seen that, you may want to check that one out if this style of stamp strikes your fancy. So here, she's going to be African-American black girl, and so I've picked the E20 family because it's still warm enough to be a skin tone. There's not like too much yellow in it, and I really like the way that it looks, like the chocolatey color of it. So here I'm just putting in my shadows. That's how I usually start, lightest to darkest, and then go darkest to lightest. Gives me the best blend. Same thing with the Distress Inks. Are we seeing a theme? So here I like to color as if my light source is in my top right hand corner. So if the sunlight was in the top right hand corner, There would be, her hair would cast a shadow on her face. The shadow of her arm would be from where it's wrapped around the stem, would be on the bottom, like underneath her bicep. Then the arm that's straight out, the sun would be shining on the back of her arm, so the shadow would be on the front. As far as her legs, because one leg is behind another, that's automatically going to be darker. And then the one that's up front, where her knee is bent, is going to be where the majority of the shadows are. So then I'm just going to, again, blend that back out. As far as shadows are concerned, I basically, the easiest way that I try to tell people is anytime two objects meet, there will be a shadow. Anytime one object lays on top of another object, there will be a shadow. Now for her hair, I wanted her hair to be black, but I did not want it to be gray. I didn't want her to look like she was this beautiful, like, you know, fairy or girl sitting in the tree with like long gray hair. Though that was a trend for a while, wasn't it? With the hair, that was a trend where people were going like a platinum gray, like young women. My niece did it. But anyway, that was never really my thing. Plus for work, I'm only allowed to have natural hair colors. That really is like, it's part of the requirements of my job. Isn't that interesting? But anyway, so here, the purple is going to, I started with the purple because it's going to give it a little bit more depth, and it's going to make sure it doesn't look gray. Another color that I use a lot besides purple is blue. And you can see, like, if you went to the store to buy hair dye, it will say on there like blue black or violet black, because they have those cool undertones, which are super pretty. So that's why I picked the purple. I know it seems a little bit crazy, but ultimately in the end, it does end up looking like black hair. And then I left a couple of little white highlights to indicate where like the shine would be. As far as her little dress is going, she's sitting, so she does have some wrinkles in that area. I'm doing the shading the same way, where as if the sun was in the top right hand corner, so her arm would block her body, and so there would be, the majority of the shading would be there. I'm also, you can see, leaving a little white area around those wrinkles. Where the wrinkles are puffed up, they would be lighter. Where they settle in, they would be darker. So I'm leaving that white area to make sure that I fill that in with my lightest color. Now I didn't get the amount of dimension that I wanted, so I did go back in with my darker, with my darkest color, and then blended that out kind of in reverse for the part that is folded over because she's sitting. Moving on to the leaves. This is pretty much my go-to green combination. I love this green combination. And it also happens to match Mowed Lawn, which is the color of ink that I put in the rainbow background. So where the stem meets the flower, darker, where she is blocking the stem with her body, shadows. As far as the leaves are concerned, you can pretty much color these any way that you want. I decided that I kind of wanted to play up the veins that were in it, and I opted to add the majority of my shading around those. But you could certainly do it in reverse. I also, the way that the leaves are drawn, like they're like the torn, tattered style of leaves. So I did add a little bit of darker shading where they jut in, just to kind of accentuate what's already drawn there. So these are rather, words are hard. You'll also notice, if you've never watched my videos before, that enunciation, difficult for this girl, both of them. I can't say words properly. I can't pronounce them correctly. And even when I think that I'm trying to pronounce them correctly, there is something about my pattern of speech that I don't. So when I say the word opaque, people are like, it doesn't have a G in it, Kelly. And I'm like, I know it doesn't have a G in it. I'm not saying opaque. I'm saying opaque, like with a K, with a K with a Q sound. But people say that it doesn't sound like that when I say it. So, and I also can't say the word hippopotamus. That's your fun fact. If you follow my channel, you already knew that's my hard word. But anyway, so just adding the shading here through the leaves. And again, like I said, I decided to make the veins the darker part, but you could reverse that and make that the lighter part. And you also don't necessarily need to add the little triangles of the parts that are jutting in. I just feel like it gives it a lot more shape and a lot more dimension. And I really wanted that since this flower is the focal point for my card. So after I do this, I'm going to color the other ones off screen because there's just, you know, multiples and I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And my videos already are fairly long just because of all of the coloring that I do. It's weird to me and probably weird for you guys too, when my videos are like 10 minutes or 15 minutes because that's not usual. Like usually you can get a good 20 to 30 minutes out of me for a video, and for some people that's too long, and I totally understand that. But for other people, they enjoy it. We also do story time on my channel, and again, that's not something that everybody loves, but that's the way that I do videos because I want that connection, I want that relationship, I want that back and forth. I want to get to know you guys, I want you guys to get to know me. So that's just something to keep in mind. That and if the story time is not for you, but you really enjoy the coloring, I tell people mute it. Don't listen to me. And I'm okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings. If you feel like you can just watch, you know, you just enjoy the coloring, turn on your own music. Don't listen to me tell story time. Or there's a lot of people I know who watch them on fast forward because they don't have the amount of time to watch them, which is also cool. Because my point of doing YouTube videos is to teach you something. I want you to walk away with, I think I can do that, I want to try that, inspired to try new things, challenge yourself, and grow. That's why I'm doing it. So if that's not happening, then I'm not the channel for you. Find somebody else who can help you grow. That would be my suggestion. Anyway, back to this card. So when you're coloring an object white, you want to leave white space. So here, you're probably thinking to yourself, Kelly, why are you coloring that flower gray? Gray flowers don't happen in nature. And I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Again, back to the whole I'm not a botanist thing. But I'm pretty sure gray flowers don't grow in nature. However, white flowers do. When you're coloring an object white, if you want it to have any dimension, you have to put in the shadows. Now, I only go out to a C5. There's other colorists that can go all the way out to a C7 or a C9 on a white object and still have it appear white. When it looks gray is because it is right next to a stark white background. So the only color you're seeing is the gray we're putting down. And again, this is going to be the same thing. Petal lays on top of a petal, there's a shadow. Petal curls over itself, there's a shadow. Petal meets petal, shadow. Petals meet center of flower, shadow. So, and now I'm just going to go back and blend those out. But I am reserving that white space, always, 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 especially with a white object, or it really will look gray, and you'll be unhappy with the way that it looks. So, once that's done, and we get through this whole process and get it onto the card, you will see that the flower really does look white once it has some other colors to compete with. So and I didn't even know, honestly, like poppies I only ever thought were red. That's the truth. But I'm a huge fan of Google. I love Google, especially when I'm coloring things, different types of flowers. I like to see what colors they come in. Ultimately, you could color this thing any color you wanted. You could color it rainbow, you could color it blue, you could color it just whatever your head can imagine, because it's your card. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is your card, and you should be enjoying the process. But I like to see what colors they come in. And turns out they totally come in white. But the white ones don't have that real dark, like black center that I typically associate with a poppy. They have like a yellow-green center. So that's what I'm doing here. And I picked out the colors, some lighter yellows and some a lighter green to go in the center. But then I didn't have the same type of dimension on it that I had on everything else, and I felt like something was missing. So in order to fix that, I'm going to bring in another color. It's a YR24, It is like my go-to mid-tone for shading yellows. And to look at it, it's not particularly like a gorgeous color on its own, but it is amazing for adding depth and shadows to yellow. It's also amazing for coloring things gold. So just keep that in mind if you're building your Copic collection. So I'm going to move on to the next one. I'm not going to show you all of the same coloring, but I will show you the color combinations that I use, because I colored this little girl Caucasian, and I colored her in the same purple colors that I will show you with the, or I'm sorry, that I showed you with the, did I show you? No, I did the red. Did I show you the purple? Oh no. I can't remember. It's the same thing as always. It's a VO1, VO4, VO6, VO9. Because I can't remember if I showed you, and now I'm terrified. I'd probably a silly thing to be scared of, but I like for you to have all of the information. So for this one, a little bit different. I'm just going to start coloring everything in with my lightest color. I don't need to leave any of that quote-unquote white space because I'm not coloring the object white. I'm coloring it red, like a more traditional poppy. However, you still want to make sure you're leaving that light color because that's your highlight. All of your dimension will come through your highlights and your shadows. So highlight is your lightest color, shadows is your darkest color. There should be minimal amounts of both of those things. For the two that are in the center, your midtones, if you're using a 4-color blend like me. If you're using a 3-color, then you only have one midtone. But your midtone should be what you see the majority of. There should not be a ton of highlight. There should not be a ton of shadow unless you're drawing like a backlit scene or, you know, something like that. There are exceptions to every rule, but just general, regular, everyday coloring rule, minimal amounts of lightest and darkest, maximum amounts of your midtones. But all of the shading stays the same, no matter what color you're using. You can put these flowers right next to each other and see that I'm adding the shadows in the same area because of the way that I am coloring it. Like those tried and true techniques don't change. So yeah, I really enjoyed coloring these. You guys know that I love flowers. Flowers are, like, they always have like a little special place for me. And I liked the idea of making 2 different cards. I don't think, stamps are an investment, guys. You're going out there and you're hustling all week and your hard-earned money, and so you want something that you're going to use time and time again. And here, I had 2 ideas for it, and in my head, I couldn't figure out which one I wanted to do, so I decided to make 2. But, like, it certainly won't be the last card I ever, make with this stamp set. So give yourself a little bit of permission to try this or try that. A lot of times people will say, well, I'm afraid to color with dark colors because I don't want to ruin my card. Everything is salvageable. Everything, you can fix it. There's ways to fix it. Now, that may mean that you have to accept that the card isn't necessarily going to look the way that you planned it out in your head, but that doesn't mean that it's going to look bad or that it's going to look ugly. There are ways to fix things and get around them, so that you don't have to, throw it in the trash can. I never throw anything away. Kind of, because I'm a craft hoarder, and that's a real thing. That's a real thing. But if I start a project, I'm riding that thing out. We're committed. We're in a long-term relationship. Like, we are, what do they used to call that when when you weren't married, but you lived together for so long that everybody thought that you were married? Common law. Me and my cards were common law. We're ride or die. Like, we are in it for the long haul. So here it looks a little bit crazy with the purples because you wouldn't think to put purple in the center of a flower. But in this situation, I am putting purple in the center of the flower because they have a violet, like a violet black center. They do. That's what poppies look like. So, I can't just color it black because then I won't have any of the purple. So I started with the purple, and then I'm going in with the grays. I'm going to come back with the purple though, because the way Copics work, lighter colors will pick up darker colors and make them lighter. That's how they blend so beautifully together in the fiber of the paper. So I am going to go back in with the violet, the VO4, and just kind of cut out some edges of the images that are there so that you can still see them. It's harder to see on camera, I'm going to be honest with you. It's much harder to see on camera. It kind of just looks like a black blob. I'm going to try to pick it up and get a little bit of a close-up so you can see. But there's, you know, there'll be pictures and stuff over on the blog if you'd like to get a much better look at it in the still photos. But you can see in real life where the separation of those things is. Plus, I love detail work. We're going to add a little bit of that later to kind of accentuate that as well. But like you can see here, there's a clear delineation between the center. I like to outline all of my images. For me, my go-to is an EK Success journaling pen. They are becoming harder and harder to come by. I think they've stopped making them. So I'm trying to find something else. I've tried the microns. They're okay. I've tried the Copic out, the fine liners. They're also okay. I have not found any that I love as much as I love the EK Success journaling pens. So I'm still on the hunt. If you have any recommendations, please let me know. So here I've gone ahead and the Distress Oxide background totally dried, and I cut this out using the horizontal stripes die, which I extra love. I just love stripes. So here I've lined them all up so that I could remove the ones that needed to be removed. And I could have made another card with those. I absolutely could have. There's enough stripes to make another card. Here I've left the die in place so I know where to put my foam tape. And now I'm going to remove it so that I can adhere the striped like die cut pieces. I also did this same thing with black cardstock because that was where I struggled, because you know I love bold black with bright colors. But then also I love rainbows. So I couldn't make my mind up about which one to do. And so I just did them both. I mean, it's basically what it comes down to. Here I'm heat embossing the sentiment. One of the things that I love, and it's a little thing, and I didn't think that it mattered so much, but it was so nice to have when I was doing it. The waffle flower dies are not interconnected. You don't have to cut them apart. And so you can just go in there and they all come on magnetic backing, which is amazing because then I don't lose any of them. And it doesn't require any work from me. And so those are two things that I totally love. I never would have thought about, like here I'm going to do the heat embossing for the little sentiments. I never would have thought about die cutting them. I would have just trimmed them. But honestly, the edges do look much nicer with the dies. So when I have the dies, I'm going to use them. And, you know, if it doesn't, then I'll go back to trim it up with my paper trimmer. But it was pretty nice to have. Here I kind of laughed to myself because I've always, like I've never bought the, what are they, like the tweezers, the craft tweezers. I never felt like they were necessary until I just did that heat emboss sentiment. Oh, don't do what I did. I was putting glue on top of my piece, on top of my card. Don't do that. Don't be me. But yeah, I never thought I needed the tweezers until I was doing that particular thing, and I was like, I should have a pair of those tweezers. So here, I didn't want my leaves sagging. Nobody wants saggy leaves. And so I put some foam tape on the back of it to make sure that they stood up. And it was hard to get the placement exactly correct. So I just went in there, pulled it up, cut it along the edge of the stripe, and was good to go. I also stamped the sentiments, which again, I adore, because they're just so encouraging. And I love, you know, I just love being able to encourage people on their own journey. We are all our own roughest critic. We just are. Here, I thought that I would only need to do the foam on one part of it. It turns out I didn't. I needed the foam on both parts, and then I end up still actually bumping it up another level, so it ends up being two. So one of the cards says bloom for yourself, and the other one says grow in your own time. And just what wonderful, encouraging words to send to a friend, because we are all running this, you know, crazy rat race of comparison. In the last couple of days, just on my own Instagram and stuff, I have seen people who said, you know, I think I'm doing okay with coloring, and then I see yours or whatever. Don't compare yours to me. Compare you to your yesterday. And as long as you're making improvements, you're doing awesome. So here we go. This is it. This is both cards. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.